Hey, what's going on? My name is Matt, and today we're going to walk through how to read a Beersmith 3 recipe sheet. I've had a few people reach out to me in the comment sections in other videos asking how to understand a recipe sheet from Beersmith 3, as it can be a little bit overwhelming, especially if you're new to brewing. Before we get started, I want to make somewhat of a disclaimer. This is not a video on how to brew a beer from start to finish. This is simply just a video on how to understand and interpret a Beersmith 3 printout, a recipe printout, and translate it into a brew day. I would recommend that you have a general understanding on how to brew a beer before looking at this, because there is going to be some terminology, some brewing terminology that I'd recommend that you have a general understanding for before getting into the video. I'm going to do my best and try to break down each step for you in the video. Also, if you're new to Beersmith 3, I have a video on my YouTube channel that goes over how to build a recipe in Beersmith 3. I will leave a link on the top corner of the video now, and also in the description down below to go over that if you're interested. Depending on the type of style you're brewing and the ingredients, you might see some different information in your sheet compared to my sheet. The black IPA example is just simply an example, but the process is all the same on how to interpret the sheet and how to break it down into home brewing steps. Okay, so we are going to breeze through the recipe sheet and get some key data points, and then we're going to go over this again and the key data points that I've outlined and kind of create a kind of a sample brew day of what to expect with a sheet like this. So this is a extract American IPA, black IPA. This is the BJCP style number and style guide. And you can see it's extract here. There's a few important data points here that we can start to record now. So the batch size is 5 gallons. That just means that the what's going in the fermenter is going to be 5 gallons. So final volume is 5 gallons. We have a boil size of 4 gallons. So boil size, boil volume 4 gallons. And then we have a boil time of 60 minutes. And then we have a end of boiling volume at 3.65. So end of boil volume 3.65. So you might already be asking yourself your first question, and that's why is the final volume 5 gallons when the end of boil is 3.65? That doesn't make any sense. And you're right, it wouldn't make any sense, but with extract and a lot of extract recipes, we don't do full wort boils. We just kind of boil a very concentrated version of the beer, and then we top it off with water at the end. Next, going over the taste notes and the ingredients. I guess there is no taste notes for this, but the ingredients. There's a lot of information here. I'll try to break it down quickly. So we have the amounts in here in ounces and pounds. We have the type of malt and type of hop and type of yeast over here. And then there's like a little tag here with steep, boil. What this essentially means is, since this is an extract recipe, you're going to be using dry malt extract or liquid malt extract. A lot of extract recipes also come with steeping grains. In this recipe, if you look down here below, it says the steep time is 30 minutes. That's a pretty long steep. Most recipes, you'd say 15 to 20 minutes for steeping is fine. But what you'd want to do for steeping is, if you are steeping, it's around 150 degrees. That's usually a pretty safe number, 152. And you'd want to hold that to the best of your ability for the 30 minutes recommended in the guide here. Next, we have a liquid malt extract line. So like I said, this is an extract beer, so you're naturally going to have extract. So we have 9 pounds, 2.4 ounces of dark liquid extract for the boil. Typically, when you would add your extract is when you are initially heating up your water. You do your steep grains for 152 or 150 degrees for 30 minutes. And then you get to boiling. At boiling, you turn the heat off, especially if you're propane, and then you would add your liquid malt extract. The liquid malt extract is kind of thick like molasses, and it's prone to scorching because it kind of drops right to the bottom of the kettle. That's why we turn the heat off. We stir it in. We make sure someone's helping you stir while you get it in there. And then that way you're going to reduce the risk of scorching. Once it's all mixed, then you can turn the heat back on, get it back to boiling, and then we can start doing our hop additions as noted here. So we have a few different types of hops. We have 1 ounce of Summit, we have 1 ounce of Chinook, 1 ounce of Centennial, 1 ounce of Cascade, another ounce of Centennial, And then it looks like we're dry hopping with Cascade for 7 days. Now you're going to see over here a percentage sign. This is alpha acid. So this is essentially the amount of alpha acid that's in this hop. That's typical. And that's the higher amount of alpha acid you're getting per hop is the more bitterness you're getting from the hop. And that should also be represented over here in the IBUs. IBUs is just a bitterness unit. So the higher the bitterness unit, the more bitter your beer is going to be. This is an IPA, so naturally it's going to be around 70 IBUs is pretty common for an IPA, so relatively bitter. So how you'd add these is once you add the liquid malt extract, you get it back to a boil, and then when you add your first ounce of Summit hop at 60 minutes, your timer starts. So you're boiling these for 60 minutes, and then you'd wait 45 minutes. Add your Chinook, 1 ounce of Chinook. Wait 5 more minutes. Add your Centennial. Wait 5 more minutes. Add your Cascade. Wait 5 more minutes. Add your Centennial. Now you notice that this says boil for 0 minutes. That's it might seem a little odd when you're looking at it, but what this is called a flame out addition typically. And so what you would do is when you kill the heat, when you're done with your 60-minute boil, then you would add your Cascade hops. And then down here we have corn sugar, dextrose. You can find this at a homebrew supply store, but it's just corn sugar. Most people add the sugar very late in the boil. You wouldn't want to add this. It doesn't really have a time where it says boil for X amount of minutes, but what most people do is they add this very, very late in the boil, like the last 10 minutes or at flame out, and you just want to stir it because, again, this is prone to scorching, so when you add it in, if you are going to add it in during the boil, you want to just make sure you're really stirring that so it's not going to scorch. You wouldn't want to add this early because you can caramelize these sugars, which would affect fermentation. So, so you would add this pretty late in the boil, and that'd be your 1 pound of corn sugar. That's going to increase the sugar to water ratio, or your OG, your original gravity, and then that's going to contribute to your alcohol by volume at the end of the brew day. So, and then we have a 1 package of American Ale 2. The manufacturer is Y Yeast Labs. 1272 is the number that you'd find on the packet. It's a smack pack. So you would add that at around 70 degrees, somewhere between 70 and 80 degrees Fahrenheit. You'd have to read the packet. It typically says when the pitching temp is, what the yeast likes to be, but you just want to make sure it's not too hot. So we'd cool it down with some sort of a plate chiller or a immersion copper or stainless steel chiller before you'd add your yeast there. And then that would help with keeping the yeast alive. And then we have 1 ounce of dry hopping. If you're not sure what dry hopping means, it just means hops that are added after the brew day. And it looks like we're dry hopping with Cascade, 1 ounce. So after your 7-day primary fermentation, you dry hop this for your last 7 days, and then you'd be racking it to bottles or a keg or however you plan on serving this beer. So that kind of goes over the taste notes here and the ingredients. Next, we have a few pretty important pieces of information. A lot of this isn't important, but I'll go over the important pieces here. So we have gravity, alcohol content, and color. You should definitely take note of what your original gravity and your final gravity is. So this is kind of to show you how you did on brew day, your original gravity. I'll tell you this, that extract recipes, you should always be very, very close to hitting this. And I wouldn't stress too much about this if you're doing extract because you don't really have much control over this. You're just going to simply just add the liquid malt extract, and just based on this and maybe a little bit of steep, you're going to be pretty damn close to this number. So I wouldn't really worry too much about this. It's still fun to measure to see how you did, but again, you don't have much control over it since it's just extract, and you just add the extract that they have. So we got the original gravity is 1072, and the final gravity is going to be 1014. The difference here is this is the gravity, the sugar to water ratio before fermentation, and this is the final gravity, the sugar to water ratio at the end of fermentation. You'd use these two numbers to calculate the alcohol. So this would probably be around 7%. Yeah, okay, so it's calculating around 7.7%. And then the bitterness we're not going to record because that's kind of based on your hops, and then the color is unimportant. That's based on your malt and your dry malt extract and your liquid malt extract. The rest of this is relatively unimportant. Next, we have steeping, grain schedule, and boil profile. All of this is relatively unimportant, except the except the steep time, it says 30 minutes, and it actually gives you a steep time. So remember when I said around 1050 to 1052, it actually recommends a steep time of 1055, which is pretty high for a steep. I would go closer to the 1050 to 1052. And then carbonation and storage. This is relatively unimportant. I have in my settings that I keg, so this is just the keg option. So now we're gonna kind of plan our brew day when looking at this sheet about how much water what a typical brew day would look like for this recipe. So first of all, our batch size is 5 gallons, but what we want to look at is our boil size. So it looks like it's recommending that we start the day off with 4 gallons, 4 gallons starting volume. You'd heat that up into your next step would be your steep step. So you'd heat this up. So heat up to 1055. I got this from the recommendation from the sheet, though I'd typically do like 1050 or 1052. And then steep grains. And then the grains you'd steep is what's noted in the recipe here. So you have 3 different types of grains here that it's recommended to steep. What you would do for steeping is, add these grains. They typically have some sort of like nylon bag that you can add these to. You just tie it off so they don't get all in the water. And then you just let them kind of soak in there like a tea bag almost, and just let that soak for 30 minutes. So steep grains for 30 minutes, since that's what the recipe calls for. After 30 minutes, we would want to heat the water up to boiling temp, but we'd want to remove the grains first. So remove steeped grains, and then we would heat wort to boiling. Our next step would be to add our liquid malt extract, which is here. So we have 9 pounds, 2.4 ounces of dark liquid extract. So we'd heat the boiling, we'd turn off heat, add and stir. Some come with DME, dry malt extract, but typically in the kits, they mostly come with liquid malt extract. So you turn off heat, add liquid malt extract, stir it, and then once it's added and mixed in properly, you'd want to turn on heat and heat to boiling again. So at this point, what we've done in the brew day is we've taken our 4 gallons of water, heated it, steeped the grains, and added the LME. So at this point, so now you have all the sugar from the grains and the LME into the water. You now have wort. So now the next part of the brew day is to start adding your hops, which you have a hop schedule right here. So it looks like at 60-minute boil. So it's at 60 minutes. It's Summit, 1 ounce. Waits 45 minutes. And we know that to wait because it says 60-minute boil here, 15-minute boil here. So our next addition is after 45 minutes. So 15 minutes left of boil. Add Chinook. And then 10 minutes left in boil. Add Centennial. And then 5 minutes left in boil. And we're going to add Cascade. After that, your boil is over. So at 0 minutes, your boil is over. And then we have this boil addition for 0 minutes. So your flame out addition. So we're going to add flame out addition is 1 ounce of Centennial, right? Centennial. You can add the corn sugar, I'd say anytime after this step. But for this case, I'll just do flame out addition, add your 1 ounce of Centennial and corn sugar. So you're gonna chill it to pitching temp. Pitching temp, is there a T in that? Yeah, let's say there's a T in it, pitching temp. And that's gonna be determined by whatever your packet is, but let's say it's around 70 degrees. That's what I typically cool it down to, but it's between 70 and 80 degrees. 1272. And then at that point, you're ready to aerate and throw it in the fermenter. So you can aerate it by either shaking the actual fermenter, or you can do as a drill stick, or if you have a diffusion stone, however you choose to aerate, but you want to aerate your wort, and then you'd want to ferment. And then after your first week of your primary fermentation, is completed, dry hop as needed, And this recipe, it looks like you want to dry hop for 7 days for the Cascade. And that's essentially it. You got your, then you're ready to rack and whatever to serve it. And hopefully it turned out okay. But this is kind of how you break down a recipe style sheet. It's good to collect some key data points and figure out what you're going to do. And then you can kind of outline your brew day. Preferably before brew day, kind of have a note in your mind, or you can take, if you have a whiteboard, you can kind of draw these out based on the recipe sheet here. To kind of outline the brew steps for all grain is you would heat up your water to your strike temp. So your strike temp is this 162, and when you add your grains, it's going to be 154 for your first 60-minute mash. 60-minute mash is pretty standard for most all grain. So you're going to collect 7 gallons of water, heat to 162, mash in with grains, hold 154 for 60 minutes. And then you'd mash out, which is your next step for the mash step here. So for this, I don't have a sparge step, but sparge step, you just kind of follow, you just add more quarts at 170 for your mash out. For your sparge, I mean. So for this, we're just going to increase the temperature of the volume. So it looks like we're just heat to 170. And this is typically a 10-minute step for 10 minutes. At this point, you have your wort, and then you just start with your hop addition. So start hops. The steps are all the same. You would just collect the volume here, heat it to this for the strike temp, and then you would just mash out, do your sparge, and then you would start the same exact process with adding your hops, and then doing your sugar additions if you have them, and then doing dry hops, and then slowing or cooling your wort down to pitching temp. But that really covers it. If you have any questions, feel free to go in the comment section and let me know. If there's something I flew by that you didn't really understand, feel free to leave a comment. We can have a conversation there. If there's some terminology you didn't understand, same idea, let me know, and we can talk in the information or the comment section down below. But thanks so much for watching. I appreciate you sticking around this long, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.